Mwanamke akikuchukia anakuweka hapa rohoni, na akikupenda pia anakuweka ndani kabisa. Unaona, utampa mwanamke kila kitu, utamfanyia kila kitu, hata ukamjengea magorofa, umpe nini, lakini mwisho wa siku mwanamke atafika mahali atakwambia, you know what, mimi sijawahi kupenda na sitakupenda, nampenda mtu fulani.
I have done everything possible to just get this guy to get the relationship working.
Am I the person supposed to be looking for you?
Mm-hmm.
You need to talk, you know.
Unampigia simu leo, hashiki simu, kesho hashiki simu, ama labda akishika mnaongea kidogo anakuambia, oh, ngoja nifanye nini, ni receive simu ya mtu mwingine. Unaona,
kama we've agreed on the projects I have and I have my own money, I have no problem yeye kuchip in whatever he has kama anataka, si ati I'm forcing him to do that.
Another thing that I'm trying to figure it out is the ego thing, where men and ego, if you ruin a man's ego, then you are not in that relationship. That's something I'm also learning. You have to protect a man's ego.
Ninachoomba nipende nilivyo, baby nipende mimi nilivyo, zawadi ya fanaka hiyo kutoka kwa Mola, mafanikio toka kwa Mola.
Very, very good evening. My name is Likuyani Eli, and just in case you're joining us, this is the Late Night Talk with Eli. Tonight, we are discussing matters that are pertinent to the male society. And these are issues that happen daily, especially in a relationship setup. So, sexual prowess is just one of the many determinants of true masculinity, quote unquote. And in this case, it is closely attached to a man's ego and hence guarded jealously. This kind of understanding, however, falls in the definition of toxic masculinity. So, according to such traditional toxic masculine values, a male who does not display enough of these traits, which could include aggression, strength or lack of emotional self-sufficiency, dominance, and for this matter, prolonged sexual stamina, may fall short of being a real man. So his ego becomes bruised and he loses self-confidence. Even just insinuating that the man's sex skills are unsatisfactory can completely damage a man. So tonight we seek to answer these questions from a man's perspective, and that's why I introduce you the man in the den. First of all, allow me to bring you James Mwathi, all the way in Nairobi, Kenya. Good evening, James.
Good evening, Eddie. Good evening, viewers. Good to be here. Interesting topic. Let's do this.
Let's do this, he says. And in Oklahoma, we are joined by Gilbert Makomere. Good evening, Gilbert.
Good evening, Ellie, and the viewers. It's great being here. Let's delve into this and talk.
Great. That is Gilbert and James, my guest in studio. And in case you are joining the cast, kindly share this because men need to listen to this, and equally the female, because there is no world without a woman. So let's get it started, James. James, why is it becoming a concern that the boy child is under Sieke, like somebody would have put it in Nairobi? James, go ahead.
I'm saying, is the boy child really under siege, or is it a perception that we've created? So I'll start with just throwing around a question, maybe to everybody. Probably what we are seeing is more cases are being reported more. social media, the mainstream media has highlighted some of the cases. Probably we are dealing with taboo subjects. Previously, when, for example, man was abused in domestic violence, it would not be talked about. Nowadays, we are bringing it more to the limelight. So the question would be, to my understanding, would be: have we seen an increase, or is there a perception that there is an increase? So we just start right off with a paradox. Has this been ongoing forever, but now it has just come to the limelight?
Okay.
Again,
Sorry. Go
sorry.
ahead, Williams.
Again, just to throw a spanner into the works.
Yeah.
If you go into culture and Kikuyu folklore, there was Wangu wa Makere who ruled over men, and men would kneel and she would sit on their backs and use them as chairs. So are we really seeing an increase, or again, it's something that we can discuss, and yeah.
I don't know. That's probably where this story of women sitting and urinating on men come from.
Again, exactly.
But that brings a whole perspective into the ego matter. Let me just have Gilbert. Gilbert, what's your take on this?
Thank you, Ellie. For me, I think it's the publicity that this subject has been given. I don't think there is an uprise in that. I just believe with the come of social media, where everything nowadays is highlighted and people get to see, people get to talk about it, it has given more light to people knowing what's going around. These things have been there. The fact that they are being highlighted now more than we used to hear about them is only that the world has become a global village, and there is nothing now that is happening that is hidden under the carpet. Everything gets to the limelight, and people get to know and see what's happening. That is what has made this topic to look like men are under under some siege, but truth be told, these things have been there. It's only that now a platform has been given. And once a platform has been given and players are on it playing and they are spectators, of course, they are bound to make comments. So I think it's an illusion of the mind. Nothing is far from the truth that that things have changed.
Well, I see James itching. James, you want to say something before I can just take on the questions?
Yes, probably, again, to move this conversation forward, if we are saying these things have been there, probably the question then to us could be, apart from the limelight that and the expansion of the space for expression that has been occasioned by technology, then the next question would be, what else has changed? And in my perspective and in my opinion and in my daily dealings with people, I would say that we have empowered the woman. Unlike previously, again, if you look at history, what has happened is probably towards the late 1980s, coming into the 90s, there was more emphasis on the girl child, because previously, again, due to culture and all that, previously the girl child was marginalized. So society took it upon themselves to actively empower the woman. So several things happened. And I would say the biggest loser in all this was the boy child, because while it was assumed that the boy child could take care of themselves and all resources were channeled towards the girl child, the boy child was left where they were in the 1980s. So that's where you find the boy child. That's where he is. While we have now empowered the woman and continuously tried to make them look like the marginalized for lack of a better word, gender in society, and we've completely forgotten the boy child. And the boy child is trying to figure their way out in the jungle, out of the jungle.
Oh, the boy child is figuring his way out of the jungle, James, you will say. However, my thinking is, and that's where we are forming the base of our conversation tonight, it has appeared so frequent that once a relationship comes to a deadlock and things are not moving forward anymore, and people are raising all their arms and everybody's aiming for the neck, whatever it is, the lady will systematically aim at one thing that a man holds dear: his prowess sexually, and of course, the size of his kingdom. Why such a low blow, if I call it, way under the belt? Gilbert.
I think such a low blow to a man is because with this current society, I think feminism has set masculinity up as a standard by which we measure equality between man and a woman. I think that's the logic that makes us now, when we are trying to fight as between a man and a woman, what makes us is equal is when we talk about feminism, then they'll push us to masculinity. So that's where they want to find our point of joining. So that anytime now, when you are like in a relationship, you are not in cooperation, but you are in competition. Every time trying to look at what are the weaknesses, what are the strengths here, instead of looking what is it we can do together. So that time when we try to differ, what happens is you'll want to use the weaknesses you've been seeing in me. And because sometimes you might not find those weaknesses, you'll want to use something that when people outside hear of it, you want to destroy my image. People are into destroying other people's image instead of strengthening them. And mostly it's the weaknesses in us that makes us figure, because this is what you experience, you and the person who had an issue in bed. We were not there. They will not attack you directly. They will attack you in public so that the public know you are weak. Does it mean that sex is the measure of love?
I'm not going to answer that because I have no idea how these things work. Let me just engage James, who is supposed to be the psychologist tonight. James, take it out. Is sex the measure of love? And that's when things fall apart, they go for sex and your sexuality. And of course, you are, wewe ni simba ama wewe si simba. Twende kazi, James.
You see, Ellie, the reason why I'm laughing is because these things will come out, and I'm talking about sexual prowess, like you put it, and the size of we are past the watershed, I believe, the size of the manhood and all that, right? They will come. These issues will come out after the two parties have gotten into a rough patch. Yeah, let's say they have been together for 2 years, for example. Does it mean one day you wake up and you realize this guy is not satisfying me, and all those 2 years you are doing, like, you are lovey-dovey and everything? It's not honest on the part of the woman to claim that to attack, to use the low blow, for example. But then again, to come to what Gilbert asks, is sex the measure of love? I would say probably not. There is more to love than sex. But you see, sex is a taboo subject in most African contexts. And what will happen again? And I heard from your intro and some of the ladies you interviewed before we came into this show, many people will, sex will bring about two aspects, guilt and shame, and it directly speaks to the ego of a man. Now, it's important to understand that men and women are wired differently. Women will discuss their sexual experiences with their friends. Men will discuss sexual experiences with their friends of women who they do not intend to keep. And this is important for people to understand. For a woman who a man intends to keep, they will not go out there and speak to their friends about the sexual relations. If you find a man talking about sex with a lady, talking about a lady's sexual performance, know that there was nothing apart from sex, just sex. But women will go and sit and converse and share experiences. Now, something else, men will not sit together and discuss their sexual prowess. Yeah. And no man will go to another man and say, I think I have a problem. I think I am not meeting high expectations. Why? Because again of the ego. The man is wired to believe that he is king, he is everything, all those alpha connotations. And again, to take this further, the age we find ourselves in and the exposure that we have been exposed to, you will find that both gender, male and female, there is a lot of pornography watching. Now, pornography, what people don't realize, it's a movie. It's a movie with take one, take two, cut, short, screen, cut, all that. But then we've internalized these perceptions that the standard man should last in bed for 19 minutes or 27. I don't know, whichever figure that people come up with.
You want
But
to
you'll
tell
be
us how much
surprised.
you think you can last, or we leave it for consultation?
No.
But anyway,
In
that's
fact, I
story
was
for another
coming there.
time.
No.
Okay, great.
I was coming there. You will be, and I urge people to Google. You would be surprised that there is no standard time for sex. It ranges all the way from 1 minute to 30. Yeah. So when a woman or when women peddle the falsehood that this man does not last in bed, those are standards according to who?
According to
But you see,
pornography,
these are
probably. But let me just
exactly.
let me allow Gilbert to
Yes,
give
yes.
his perspective before we forget that he was actually here. Gilbert, you've heard what James has said, and it is bringing a very interesting perspective into the discussion, where we discuss about how long a man, the longevity of a man when it comes to matters bedroom and pleasuring their spouse. Do you think women misuse this concept of how long a woman should stay, and why does that come into play once a relationship is going south? Gilbert.
Thank you, Ellie. I think those are stereotypes that most times we fight within ourselves anytime trying to look for a solution in relationships that have gone sour. I don't think a relationship can be subjected to determining how many minutes one can last in bed. Because as I asked earlier on, does it mean that sex is the only measure of love? Are there other aspects that made you two people to be together? What about those other aspects? You have invested in this relationship emotionally, financially, and very many aspects coming in to make it as a whole. And every day you live, you make it towards feeling that the more we are together, the more we want to continue being together. So what happens when the relationship when someone figure out they no longer want to be with you, instead of looking for the reasons why they don't want to be with you, you invent reasons and push them towards them. That is impulse fighting. There's nothing there. You're just fighting to make your ego also right, to feel okay. But you know very well that's not the truth, because you've been there, as James said, 1, 2, 3 years. What were you doing there?
And I want to ask the ladies that are watching, including the men, what are your reasons? And why is it that after 5 years you discover finally you have a bogus for a man working on your garden? So, James, let's take it a little bit further. And I want to bring in the other perspective, which gets attacked, especially when it comes to the kingdom size. Thy kingdom come. Do we have a standard size? And if we do, why is it that it has become almost impossible to please an average woman? James.
I will tell you for free that there is no average or standard size, and for women who are honest and who understand themselves, they will tell you that pleasuring a woman does not depend on the size or how deep you go. Again, I'm trying to be very polite here.
We are actually free to now discuss. This is PG rated, and Dr. Mtua is asleep.
I don't want to find myself in trouble tomorrow morning.
No. We are okay.
But again, for the woman who understands themselves and a man who also understands themselves, if there's anything I would accuse men of, is not understanding how to pleasure a woman, not about the size. Because if you look at the physiology of a woman, the clitoris is at the entrance of the vagina. It's not huko ndani yet you have to pump 17 kilometers inside. Yeah. So the issue of how deep and he has a small willy, and it doesn't arise at all. Doesn't arise. Again, pornography is what is killing relationships. Pornography and poor advice from fellow friends, lady friends. Because again, just as I was saying that men will not go and discuss women, I know I'll get into trouble with this, but women at times are their own worst enemies. Because they will see their friend thriving in a relationship, and their relationship is not working, and they will go misadvise their friend in the guise of advising. So she will be told, your man is not doing 1, 2, 3. And for a woman who does not understand themselves, this becomes a major point of departure. But more than that, Ellie, more than the myths and all that, if we were to get into the real issues, I would ask, and these are some of the questions that I pose to couples whenever they are having these fights. This is the same person who you started dating and you took it to the next level, and you've been together for 1 year, for example.
Yeah.
What is it that comes in between that makes you realize this guy is taking me for granted, or this guy is not satisfying me in bed? And the major reason, one of the major reasons that I find, is people start developing, especially women, start developing expectations that they do not vocalize.
Mm-hmm.
So you think, because I have texted this man in the morning, tomorrow he should be the one texting. Or because I have made candlelit dinner, then he should show up with flowers. Unfortunately, we are wired differently. And I usually tell women who I see on professional basis, I usually tell them, men are not mind readers. We are the worst when it comes to reading code language and sign language and body language. A man, you have to vocalize and say, I want things done 1, 2, 3 ways. And you will find initially, for example, and this is an example that I use, when you're dating, when you're very new in the relationship, if you call a man and you say, babes, how are you? I thought we could grab a coffee today. And he tells you, no, I'm busy. You will be okay. You will be okay because you understand he has his other life out there. But 6 months down the line, you are in this relationship and the same conversation takes place. Babes, how are you? Can we do coffee? And he says, no, I'm tired at work. Already you start catching, for lack of a better word. That's the terminology we use. You start developing negative feelings. You start internalizing negativity, thinking that it is a form of rejection, while the man is clueless and is going around his business. So there's a lot of there are a lot of untalked. I can't find the word. There are a lot of expectations that are not vocalized, and they end up bringing toxicity in a relationship. Again, Ellie, before we go to the next bit, I talked about women empowerment. Yeah. Now, and I said we left the boy child somewhere in the forest trying to figure their way out. Now you find there is this empowered woman who has met this young man who is still lost in the wilderness.
Yeah.
And but society expects that the man will always take the lead. But we've not equipped this man with how or what it means to take care of an empowered woman in the 21st century. Yeah. So this young man knows a woman's place is in the house. A woman should not countermand me when I say this, it should be this. But the woman is also working. They're earning the same, or the woman is earning slightly more. The woman is empowered. The boy child is lost. Again, to just my last take on this, when an oppressed an oppressed population or society gains their freedom, the oppressor is usually in trouble. And that is what has happened to the men. Yeah. We have empowered the woman. We've taught the woman, and you've had it. We might talk it like jokes. Women are drinking harder than men nowadays. What you can do, we can do better. What a man can do, a woman can do better. All those cliches are being thrown around. But have we asked ourselves, where did we leave the boy child?
Great. I want to ask those questions. And before I do that, I will allow Gilbert just to give his side view of exactly what you've said. And then I'll go to the comment section because I see there's interesting comments coming in. And boy child, this is your discussion. Where are you? I see ladies talking on your behalf. So continue sending in your comments. I'll be reading them in a short while. But let me allow Gilbert to come in with his perspective. Gilbert.
Thank you, Ellie. I agree with James on what he said. He's a practitioner. He's been in the field, so he's talking from an experienced perspective. And these are some of the aspects that are finishing our society. Some of us who are living outside our usual society will bear witness that the composition of our society is different. Like in Africa, we are more of communism. We do our things as a community. When you get outside here, life is about you. People are individualistic. So you run life your way. But from our community, life is run as a family. That's why you have like, there will be other competing outside factors that will affect your relationship. Like you have an issue with your partner, the first thing you do, you run to your friends, you run to your sisters, you run to your peers to get advice. When do we stop and ask ourselves, what might be the problem? When do we sit down and ask ourselves, where did I go wrong? We fail to express. And mostly, women will say they want us to be emotionally intelligent, while they are meaning They want us to be emotionally expressive, which are two different things, as James put it. They are two different because emotional intelligence is the measure to which we mark maturity in human masculinity. So when you use that to measure, when you use emotional expressiveness to measure emotional intelligence, we miss a point. And that's where feminism and masculinity come into play. We are competing instead of cooperating. Whenever there's a problem, instead of us sitting together and discussing the problem, whenever there's a problem in a relationship, instead of us squaring the problem within the relationship, we choose more to break out. Sometimes the professionals who have been in the field, like James, will bear witness that you'll get situations which you listen to the two people and then you ask them, surely asking, why are two of you breaking up? And for sure, they don't have a solid reason. You realize they are just competing for space. Women have been empowered. Boy child was left in the 90s. They are struggling to pick up. And the oppressed has been empowered, is now the oppressor. So the oppressor who was is suffering to gain the new tactics. No one is there for the boy child. Everyone is there for the girl child, including men. Now, masculinity has been affected. We are tending to move towards feminism. You are a man struggling to fit in as a woman because the woman has been empowered and they voice because that is how God created them. For men, we rarely voice. No one can blame us. That's how God has created. That's how we develop. So we'll not voice easily, but women are voicing. So we compete in that space where women are, what they are saying is what we are like taking as law. And as I said, our society is communal. So we do things in a community. So you say something today and everyone is about it, that becomes a law. Written nowhere, subscribe not to any research. And sometimes this relationship, they start on the wrong foot, just like a research. With poor research questions, you'll end up with a hypothesis that will not give you valid results. So when starting this relationship, do we ask ourselves, what do we want in it? How do we want to make what we want in it? What are the steps we will take to reach what we want in it? When we fail there, that's why mostly, according to my opinion, 3 years down the line, and someone is telling you, I don't know what I saw in you. Yet we have been together for 3 good years, investing emotional, financial, your time, and everything. So someone who perceived like on themselves, they invested more, they tend to react more if they don't have safeguards. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. I think for everybody that is listening, they should be understanding what Gilbert is actually talking about. And we are talking tonight and we are reflecting on the topic ego under siege, where we are asking, why do women attack the man's kingdom when relationship goes south? And by kingdom, we are describing about the masculinity of a man and what defines a man, which is ego. For those who do not understand, a man is clearly made up of muscles that are called ego. Once a man's ego is bruised and destroyed, that is the end of it. You are no longer having a man in your house, you're having something that looks like a man. But again, that is my opinion. Let's see what the viewers are saying. And in the comment section, that is interesting here. Thank you, everybody that is watching. And of course, this cast needs to be shared widely. Let the men get to express themselves. And ladies, listen out because we need you to know what we are going through. Thank you so much, Kipro Roda, for tuning in. Vero Suzanne and Kyoko. We had a message there that says this from Ann Kyoko. She says, siku hizi men confuse narcissism and toxicity to ego. Wow. And I think James is in a better place to talk about that. There is a very thin line. I will wait for your comments on that. Welcome, Wesley Edmonds, Facebook user. Sorry, for if you see your name being displayed as Facebook user, it's because you're watching from the Facebook group. And for your name to display, you need to actually agree to the terms and conditions of StreamYard, and then in that case you are able to actually display your name on the comment section. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us. We have somebody says here, okay, welcome Jaquel Williams. We have Lillian Okendo, we have Sarah Njonjo, and there is a message here from, let me just read the message quickly. There's Sheiks James Does, who says females don't open up problems they face on bed, but men do it easily. Well, that's from a female's perspective. I'm not going to argue with that. I will let James to take task on it. Then we have this message here. I love this. It says from Edmonds, manhood is encapsulated in the 3 P's of heterosexual relationships. These include procreate a family, that's the first P, provide for the family, his sires, and protect his offsprings. Attacking a man's prowess to perform seems to cut deep into a man's ego and reasons for existence. I will ask Gilbert to give a view on that. Then we have somebody here says, Susie Love. Susie says, pornography, and this is something that James mentioned earlier on, has become something else nowadays. There's no explanation for that, meaning it is worse than it looks. Then there is somewhere here, again from Edmonds, I will read this one. Thanks, James. Men need to come open and open their hearts. And thank you for the show, Ellie, because focusing on man, because boy child is under siege. Under siege is what boy child is under. And then there is Lillian Okendo, sorry, who says men also do share. I was once or twice abused by one lady. Okay, she spoke a lot of not so good words. At that point, I realized my man was weak to share our bedroom matters. I cried and ended up to be depression. We're sorry about that. So James, don't be convinced men are angels. It is not for men. And I think James made that point and he said, if a man will describe your sexual encounter to a fellow man, then you are not for keeps. But I hope that was not the situation for your case, Lillian, and it's just somebody who decided not to keep his mouth shut. We have something also one more here from Susie, love Susie, who says if you're in a relationship, you should put things clear to each other, not doing things for your own chini ya waba, yani chini ya maji, under the waters. Nowadays ni ukifanya hivi na mimi nafanya hivi, like you do this, I do that, and the relationship will never work though. Okay, that's their perspective. Continue sharing, inviting, and let's have a discussion. Okay, James, your input before we take it to the next level, please. Let me just bring in
Probably,
okay.
no, it's fine.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think I'll start with, I'll respond to what Lillian says, and I agree. In any population, there'll always be rotten apples. I'm not defending, I will not sit here and defend men and put a blanket defense that all men are these angels who are oppressed and victimized. We have weak men out there, and there are men who are weak in all areas. So probably talking to somebody else about your sexual experiences in bed might have been their way of getting the other woman. I don't know. So I will not sit and defend that. I think it's wrong. So like Kelly expresses, I think that was just not right, and we are sorry for what you had to go through. So that one, I have no excuse. Number two, there's somebody who has talked about narcissism, and they say most men are narcissists, and they confuse that with masculinity. And again, having been in the field for a while, I will not excuse narcissism. It's one of the most inhumane character defects that you would find in both men and women. It's not only on men, yeah. But then I would want to say, if a woman is careful and has her eyes wide open, you will notice a narcissist very early in your relationship. And a narcissist is most often an abuser, and it starts emotionally. It does not even start physically, it starts emotionally. So if you're careful and you're observant, that is something that you should be able to pick very early on in your relationship, even before you go deep into it. But then you also need to understand that these people are smooth talkers. And again, the reason why most women will fall into this type of people with this character or personality traits is because women love to be moved. They want to that lovey-dovey, and such people are good at their game. But then again, furthering on this topic, and probably speaking a little bit, borrowing from what Gilbert was saying, I think we also need to understand the different meanings of love between the two genders, because again, that's one point of that's one big point of departure. And you will find that for women, it is more emotional than physical, while for men, it's more physical than emotional. There is an age-old question that we've never been able to answer. Probably I will pose it here. Can a man love two women? It has always been a conflict. That is the bomb that you throw when you want people to start fighting everywhere. Yeah? Because an equal number will argue that a man has the capacity to love more than one woman equally, but most women will say that is impossible. So that brings about the question: what is love then? What are we talking about? Do we have the same definitions of love? When a woman says "I love you," is it the same meaning as when a man says "I love you"? Yeah. And these fights that we are seeing are simply because we have not defined what we mean by love. For some men, and I've seen somebody populate, I think, three aspects of a man: protector, procreator, and provider. Yeah. Now, what happens? That is the cultural attachment to what being a man is. But then, what happens in this situation where a man and a woman are living in the same house, they are earning equal amounts? Who pays what, and how does that matrix go? And again, you've had that slogan, or I don't know what to call it. What is mine is mine, and what is yours is ours. You see, and that's where we confuse this man. Yeah. So there's a lot of deciphering that we need to do. Again, women, back to what I was saying, women love emotionally. When a woman invests in love, she invests emotionally. So even when there is a heartbreak, the woman is more heartbroken, if there is anything like that, or will feel it more than the man. And the sense of betrayal will be heightened to the woman more than the man. And that's why you find, again, going back to the oppressor being the oppressed, I had one of the viewers, or one of the people you interviewed earlier, say, I must make sure that I have done 1, 2, 3, because we are trying to seek revenge for the hurt that we've gone through. Yeah. So there's a whole matrix that needs to be undone. Are we doing a good job at it? Definitely not. As a society, we are doing a very poor job at trying to bring together. I think we're going the Western world. In the Western way, there are prenups before marriage. There are prenups. What does that tell you? Already there is anticipation that this might not work. But in our context, culturally, we were taught ndoa ni kuvumilia.
Yeah.
And it was both genders, yeah? So you try and understand where this other person is coming from. I try and understand where she's coming from. But nowadays, everybody is too busy, and then we hope that we can read each other's signs. Again, recipe for chaos.
Great. Let me just bring in Gilbert. Gilbert, what do you take of all the comments that we screened earlier on, and very quickly respond to them?
Thank you, Eli. One thing I would love to say, I think someone mentioned about narcissism and masculinity, and my take is this: nothing is wrong with these terms. The problem is application. Because from definition, a narcissist is a person who has an excessive interest in or admiration for themselves. Masculinity is the nature of a man. Do we create nature? No. What do you do with someone who is excessive? The fact that there is a definition for that word means it exists, and it's not bad. Application is the problem. How do you go about the issue? As I said, what is your interest in that relationship? Let me give like this example. Some of us have gone out, we bought properties, we bought land. Why do you buy a land that all the time when it rains, it's filled with water? Well, you know very well, when it rains, that place will be flooded. You must have a strategy on how you're going to handle it. Some of us, we see these signs. When you're coming into this relationship, you know this is the type of a lady or this is the type of a man I'm getting involved with. But we let our heart lie to us, that we forget to do what is right. And what is right means having a plan for that relationship. Anything, a relationship is like a project. If you don't have a plan for it, it's bound to fail because you never planned for where you are going. So when you fail, there's nothing you invested. You'll give excuses. And that's why many will come and say, they will look for the weakest thing on you to attack you. So if you never plan, don't blame anyone. And if you sit down to plan and you see here, there is nothing you are planning, check off as early as possible. Don't allow feelings to mislead you, because most of us, feelings mislead us. We say, let me just be there, maybe things will change, maybe things will work out. You have to convince yourself that things will work out. But when you're saying things will work out, what will you do for those things to work out? What are the steps you've lined up? How are you going to implement them? When I say how are you, means the two of you. It's not you alone, because when you have a strategy, you alone and you're leaving the other party, you are sailing this boat alone. When you capsize, you'll be alone. So that's why, like James said, you'll feel cheated. Because me, I don't believe ladies feel more hurt than men, depending with how you guys are investing in that relationship. Because I believe you go in with your 100. You don't go in with your 50 for someone else to feel the other 50. Where are you leaving the 50? To who? You came with your 100. I'm coming with 100. That means we are not empty. We need to complement and better it. But when you come in with 50 and leave the other 50, be sure when you'll be hurt, this gap of 50 that you left will hurt you more than the 50 that you went in with. You'd rather go in with your 100. Convince yourself. That's why you need to ask yourself very many questions. What am I going into? Am I ready for it? Is this the person I want to be with initially? Don't wait to be there to learn. What are you learning? God never gave us that ability to learn each other here. We are just given ability to coexist. So you prefer, will I coexist better with him or her or not? If you convince yourself you'll not, chuck off. But if you convince yourself you want to be there, be there. But if something happens along the way and you realize, yeah, this is what I saw, it has changed. This is what I thought would happen, but it's not happening. The best thing, have a pull-out plan. Do it gently. Though some will be aggrieved, they might not accept because it was a unit and you are disengaging a unit which had already tangled. Man, there are many things involved. Have a plan and do it amicably. Because remember, you have yourself to go to another relationship. Do you want to move on with that toxic in the other relationship? No. You want to sort yourself before you move on. So I believe it all goes about in what we want for ourselves. What you think the other person wants when you sit down and communicate. James talked about love language. What is your love language, you guys, when you're coming together? If you don't have, why can't you learn? This is our love language. Establish it. See if it's working. If it's not working, because we love to live in denial. Oh, it will change. Things will just be better tomorrow. We'll be okay. Oh, God will send his angels to work miracles. Man, these are human beings, born and bred. In the process of birth and breeding them to where they are, you are not there. You only came in when they are already made. And to undo what has been made for like 20-something, 30 years, it will not take a single day. It takes time. So if you are patient enough, you will be patient. But if you know you are not patient, don't sit there, because you are gathering what you'll not be able to handle when you explode. Thank you.
Well, I see James raising his hand. James, you want to say something before I just quickly switch because time is not on our end?
Yes,
Go
yes,
ahead.
yes. I feel we've targeted. I want us to flip this a little bit, and ask ourselves again. Now, I want to look at it from the woman's angle, yeah. And I want to ask, what does it mean to be a man? Because again, that's one big fight that we are having, yeah. If I find that there is a generation that we lost men in terms of upbringing, in terms of what it means to be a man. Are we bringing up a boy child to be a proper man as envisaged in the creation story or whatever theory that we follow? Yeah. And I'm speaking this because we have this generation that I like calling the Kababa generation. Yeah. We've brought up some men to be, for lack of a better word, to be sissies. Okay? You find a 32, 35, 37-year-old man, they are dating, but they can't make decisions.
Yeah.
They are with their lady and a decision has to be made. And the man is like, let me consult my mom. What the hell? Yeah. We have a generation of men who are not taking up their responsibilities. Yeah. And I usually tell ladies when they're starting to date, it's very important that you look at the family history. Do not, like Gilbert is saying, do not just go in and hope that you'll change things huko ndani. Ati wacha tu tuanzane nitambadilisha. No. Because there is a generation that we have brought up and we've taken care of them, and by we I mean society. At times you'll find from single parents or from very busy parents who assumed that financial provision equaled to proper upbringing. So the child or the man now, the child who has now become a man, never learned how to sweat, to provide. Everything was provided for. So such a man starts dating with a lady who has been empowered, went through school, has fought her way through corporate ladder. Those are two very individual people, two very different individuals, rather. Yeah. So even as we say that the boy child is under siege, we need to ask ourselves, how have we brought up this boy child that we're talking about? Is it the Kababa generation? As long as it's the Kababa generation, we will always have problems.
Okay, great. I am gonna take a quick break so that we see what is up next, and we come back with our conclusive remarks, and then of course, for everybody that is joining tonight, we are discussing the increasing trend of the ego hurting and bruising among men, especially from the people they love. And why is it that they have become a target, especially when it involves their ability to perform in matters bedroom and the size of their kingdom? Why does it become a subject matter when relationship goes south? But before we draw our conclusion remarks, bring you an advert for what is to come in the course of tomorrow. So, in a moment. Do join me tomorrow at 9:30 p.m. East African time, and of course 7:30 p.m. Central European time as we discuss masturbation in women. See you tomorrow. So, gentlemen, as we conclude this topic tonight, I want us to put things into perspective and ask ourselves, do we have point of salvation for men that actually have been hurt, their egos, and is there a solution to this as you address ladies on the channel tonight? James.
There is a solution. Number one, again, unfortunately, when I started by saying, when we attack sexuality, we bring out two issues: the guilt and the shame. And if by any chance the man had an inferior complex or a low self-esteem, most of these men end up, or there's a very high likelihood that they may end up developing mental disorders like depression and such. Now, again, it's important to note that depression, for example, manifests differently in men than women. While the conventional, what we think of depression as the low moods and crying and all that, in men, depression might manifest as aggression and anger outburst and all that. Now, such are the instances that are bringing the issues that we keep on seeing on our screens. A man woke up one day, took a panga, slashed everybody in his family, and then hanged themselves. Yeah. So there is a real danger in the space of the
Kindly, if you
mental
could
health.
adjust your microphone, we can hardly hear you, please.
Sorry, you
Thank
can hear me now?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
good.
sorry,
That's
sorry for that. Now, I was saying we need to be very careful in the mental health sphere because we are predisposing some men to mental disorders, and they end up taking actions that nobody could have foreseen. Yeah. If you feel that you're in the wrong relationship, like Gilbert had earlier said, just find a way of getting out amicably. At times it can be chaotic, at times it can be ugly, but do not fuel it by attacking the ego of a man. Again, being the stronger sex physically, you might attack the ego, and then the reaction is more than you had bargained for. You might attack the ego, and the man thinks, what do I have to lose? I've been unclothed in public, so I might as well do whatever that I need to do. So let's be careful on how we handle some of these situations. You don't have to be in these relationships. Let's enter relationships while we are with our eyes wide open. Let's not hope that we will change things while on the inside. What you enter is what you bargain for, and that's what you do. Thank you.
Great there. I will take this one very quickly. I'm not sure I get the question, but I'll try read it out for you, James. When someone is going through tough times, there is an inner say in you like, don't do. Should someone listen to it? Please answer. I'm not quite sure I understand the question. Do you understand the question, or is it about do not,
I think
visit the
I
land of
think
milk and
what
honey?
Lillian I think what Lillian is talking, I am assuming is about that intuition. Intuition, that inner voice that tells you maybe this is a wrong decision, maybe this is not the right decision I'm about to make, or maybe this is not the right relationship. What I would tell Lillian is when you have that doubt, it is a form of self-doubt of what you're about to do. Take a step back. Take a step back and observe first. Just chill, be quiet, observe. Things will become clearer. The problem is we ignore this. This voice is clouded by what I call pink love, which is just pink love. It fades immediately once you're inside. So don't let your judgments get clouded by infatuation and hope.
Great. I think we lost Gilbert for a moment, but in case he joins back the cast, let's just conclude this and say I believe we've had a very interesting conversation. And this is not the end of this conversation. We can keep this conversation going, and probably I will ask Gilbert to give his closing remark because I say he's back with us. Gilbert, we are closing, and what are your takeaway points for the boy child moving forward? Can we salvage what is left of him, and how?
Uh, I think we can salvage. As we said, it matters to both parties because we don't want a situation where we also re-empower men and oppress women because we need to coexist as a unit. And some of these things, as we said, this is what eats our society. It just depends with how we handle the situation that hit us without competing, but cooperating. I think that's where the solution is because with the invention of social networks where situations are shared everywhere without censure, what is shared, the way the society is being brought up, I think we need to sit down and evaluate because with time, this is a time bomb for us. It all comes from the upbringing. Because if these are the boy child that have been have a problem now, what will happen to these fathers in the near future generation? If you're growing up feeling oppressed, what happens to those sons and daughters you're going to give birth to? Women should also ask themselves, if at this time you think you're oppressing men, what happens to that daughter of yours you're going to give birth, whom you'll tell them, a man can tell you nothing because we are equal. My question is always, who said we were not equal? And what is equality? Thank you.
It is a great take from you, Gilbert. And of course, I cannot thank you, gentlemen, enough because I believe I've learned quite a lot in this discussion. And for everybody that joined us, I want to say thank you so much. I want to read out Catherine Osita, who agrees with Gilbert, Lillian Okendo, who says, James, thank you so much for the piece of advice you gave us. Lillian Okendo, once again, Susie loves Susie. Kipro Road, Mutune Sarah. We have Jackal Williams. We have Njekita and Sarah Njonjo. We also have Lily Jacobs. Thank you so much for joining the cast tonight. Shix Jamais Jitos. Wow, the names I read on Facebook. We have Mediatrix Yakama. Thank you so much. We had Jackie Williams once again, Wambu Alinette, Wesley Edmonds. Thank you so much for your contribution. Irene, I need one who can care. I think she was talking about a man, and we had quite interesting contributions from all of you. Martha Ngenge, thank you so much. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And we had somebody else here, I suppose. Yeah, some names are coming from the Facebook group, so I'm not able to get the names because it's saying Facebook user. So I still appreciate all of you. Harun Mushiri, thank you for tuning in tonight. Anki Yoko, Vero, Susanna, and everybody that stayed to watch this cast. Do share the cast. I ask you to send in questions, and I think we have James there. James, once again, James, he is psychologist and a mental health practitioner based in Kenya. If in case you want to reach out to him, those are his contacts. That is +254-72477-3949, and that is mwathijames30@gmail.com. Of course, Gilbert, all the way in USA, Oklahoma. Thank you so much, sir, for making time. And we appreciate your contribution. I hope to see you next time as we handle even further discussions on our platform. For every other person that made this program successful, I do appreciate you. See you tomorrow with Nyokabi Kamau as we discuss a very untouched topic, masturbation in women. Till then, I've been your host, Lekuyani Eli, and as always, it's a pleasure. Do join me on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. The handle is The Arts in Heart. Good night, and God bless you.